I want to create something that's bigger than me. Like anxiety almost set in, where I was like, this is going to be hard. So every day we say, what can we do that is going to get the business further forward than it needs to be? We shook hands midnight, 2 months after we had thought of the idea. We said, if this ever gets to that point, we both call it quits and we start.
From Ministry of Work, welcome to Greater Manchester's Greatest Minds, the show about Greater Manchester's pioneers, entrepreneurs and visionaries, and the stories that brought their ideas to life. I'm Eddie Whittingham, and today I'm joined by Emily Moffat, founder of Basecamp Talent, head of talent at Fearless Adventures, and co-founder of Pieceful, a purpose-driven jigsaw brand. Emily's story is all about choosing meaning over momentum. While juggling a full-time career in talent and investment, Emily and her partner Joe quietly built Pieceful from their living room. What started as an idea to help people unplug is growing into a wellness brand with heart, storytelling and community at its core.
Yeah, so I grew up in Sale, South Manchester, with my mum, dad and sister. Pretty like normal childhood, really. I think we're very close as a family. So my mum and dad both moved on from Newcastle. So it was literally just the four of us. And I don't think I ever thought about it when I was younger. But then when the older I've got, the more I've appreciated how hard that must have been. For like my mum and dad, They both worked long hours. Like all the childcare was on them. We didn't have like grandparents around. And I think that helped have such a nice bond. Probably tested each other quite a lot.
I'm sure.
We had a lot of challenge from like, we've all got quite fiery personalities. My mum's a bit more mellow. But I really love childhood. I think that my mum and dad both bring very different emotional kind of like very temperaments, I would say. So my dad's a lot more like chatty and extroverted, very empathetic. And like my mum is just, the best woman. And she like really shows her love through acts of service. So she's never going to sit there and like gossip with me necessarily, but she will make a cracking roast dinner. And I think that, is really nice to have. And then my sister is a couple of years older, and she's my best friend. Yeah, again, we probably didn't get on when we were young.
Standard sisters,
Who does
right?
get on with their
Yeah,
sibling when they're
sure.
younger? But she's my best friend now. We get on really well.
Love that. And what about sort of school life? What was that like for you? Did you love it, hate it?
I really liked school. I had to be quite a different child because my sister was really naughty and she was known in school of being quite naughty. And actually, if I look back now, I think she wasn't necessarily naughty, she just hates injustice. So she would really stand up for other people. She'd constantly be the martyr. And I remember my dad be like, just leave people to fight their own battles. So I always thought that I had to be the quieter one and more well-behaved because I didn't want to get in trouble as well. But I really liked school. I think that I always leant towards like humanities and those side of the subjects. I didn't like science, didn't like maths, much to my dad's disapproval. But I really enjoyed school. I had a really good group of friends. Like we're all still really close from like the age of like 10. So I love school.
And did you tread the sort of path through college, then university?
Yeah, so I went to a grammar school. So like in South Manchester, you can go to grammar school where you like pass 11 plus.
Yep.
And I think that our school was really set on what path that looked like. So it was either a Red Brick or a Russell Group or Oxbridge. And that was, if I look back now, I always used to say that was fine for me. And it definitely was fine for me. And I also had parents that really were very strict on school, on like education and where I should go for university. And I never really questioned it until I was later on in life. And I thought, actually, I think it would have been nicer, not necessarily just for me, but for other people that I was really good friends with at school to have those options. Like if I had kids anytime soon, I would be saying, look at an apprenticeship, look at traveling, look at any other path than just that very typical
and
path.
I think the times are changing slightly, because I think definitely, it was kind of like go to uni or what else are you going to do kind of thing at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember they had like assemblies and they only did like a half an hour talk on anything other than university. And it was almost felt like you were being shunned a little bit.
Yeah.
And I say this because I loved my school and I think they were amazing. And they were doing, you look at school now and you think, well, they have to especially at grammar school, you have to have a certain amount of grades and you want to prove that it's great for your child to go here. They're probably going to have that path. And that's what parents look for. But actually, I think I wish I'd probably looked at more options and like what was a bigger potential.
So out of interest, what did you do and
Yeah.
what do you think you might have done if not?
Yeah, so I did history
Okay.
at uni. But again, like I was looking at sociology, but that wasn't seen as
It's not the
the most academic. And I really want to go far away. I just had this thing, which is really weird now because I'm quite a home, but I quite like being close to my parents and like close to friends. But I remember being 18 and just being like, I really don't want to be around Manchester. I just want to like
what's
go
the furthest place on the map?
what Edinburgh, Glasgow. And then I landed on Newcastle in the end because I actually remember on results day I was that really annoying person. I put Newcastle as my first and Glasgow as my second choice. And I loved Glasgow. Like I just fell in love with it as a city. Like the music, the art, the culture was just amazing. But I'd got into Newcastle and I was like, oh, I would have liked to go to Glasgow, but I just like not going to be that annoying person that rejected the first choice. But yeah, then I went to Newcastle and I absolutely loved my time at Newcastle.
Yeah, great city.
Yeah, such a good city. I probably partied a little bit too hard, which I think if I look now, I wish I'd just chilled out a bit more.
Do you though? People say that and I'm like, do you though?
I think that what I had quite a knack of doing when I was young, and I think I actually mellowed out a bit more now, is I like constantly wanted to be the chatty, like I would like you could count on me that I'd be the one going out and I would never say no to a plan and I'd be the last one up at a party. I don't think that did very good things for me, like mentally and physically. I think that I got myself in a place where I was I'm such a people pleaser and I constantly wanted to say yes to people. And I was experiencing freedom of being at university that I do look and I think, oh, I think I should have just taken it a bit easier. I probably wish I could just sit back and not have to be the person that's rallying the troops together. I really wish I just hadn't done that.
Is that because you felt like you almost made a rod for your own back to be that person? Is that why?
Yeah, I think that do you know what? I saw uni as this complete chance. Like when I was growing up, I really didn't like the way I looked. I had awful teeth. That I was quite chubby as a child, and I didn't really get much attention. And I think I went to uni and just had my braces off and
reinvent yourself.
I was like, I'm going to reinvent myself, which is really weird because I went with a boyfriend that I was with for the whole 3 years that I had from home. But I think that I just really saw this as my chance to have not even the friendships. I had really good friendships, but just be a person that I wasn't known as when I was at school. And I think that I put too much pressure on myself. I really do.
What would you have done if you hadn't have gone to uni, do you think? You mentioned that you might have toyed with a few other things.
I would have loved to have gone travelling at some point. And I worry that I've left it a bit too late. I'm 28 now and everyone's like, you can go travelling, you can do all those things. But I wish that I'd experienced... I know I went to Newcastle and that was 3 hours away from Manchester. I completely get that. But I actually think who I was when I was 17 and I'm so much more of an overthinker and a worrier now. Whereas when I was that age, I remember I went to Mexico and Belize and went through the rainforest for 4 weeks when I was 16. And I would never, if you could, you couldn't put me in the middle of a rainforest right now. I'd be such an overthinker. And I wish that I'd rallied in that emotion a bit
when
more.
You've got that level of naivety and fearlessness.
Yeah,
right?
I wish that I'd done that a bit more because I think now, it's really weird because the older I get, the more that people are like, oh, when you're in your late 20s and early 30s, you just know yourself so much more and you're so much more confident. And I'm like, I'm confident, but I worry so much more than I used to.
Yeah, it's because you know more.
Yeah.
The more you know, the worse it is.
Yeah, so I wish I'd gone travelling and experienced that side of life that I just don't think I did.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I think people always think they're too old when they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
And then the older, I'm 40 this year, and then the older you get, you're like, oh, that was so young. Because I remember when I was leaving the police to go into train to be a lawyer, and I was like, God, I'm going to be the oldest at uni and stuff. But then I think, but if I hadn't done that, I was only 25 or whatever. I was like, if I hadn't done that then I'd still be stuck there. So it's don't think you're too old when you're
Yeah. 28 is a really weird age though, because I think that I see friends who have like gone and lived in Australia. Some are completely changing jobs. Some are just fresh out of relationships. My best friend's about to have a baby. And there's so many different avenues. And sometimes you can get quite overwhelmed of what the next avenue should be.
And what society tells you it
what
should
society
be.
tells you. And I remember when I started the business with my boyfriend and my dad, who was like the best person but is so risk averse, was thinking like, well, I remember he said, can I swear?
Yeah.
He was like, why the fuck are you selling jigsaws?
Why not, Dad?
Why not do that? And he's very risk averse. Like we spoke about, you know, what happens if Pieceful grows and what happens with Basecamp Talent. And it's there's so many questions, but he is such a person that he's thinking, no, you stay on a path that's like well trodden.
Yeah, because he's probably thinking from the outside in, you've got a great job there. Why would you be doing this on the side? But is that not what it's about? It's like, you would be bored if you weren't trying these new things, right? And then it's interesting because obviously on the one hand you're thinking, I'd like to go traveling, but then on the other, you've got a great job, you're building a business. That to other people who are traveling, they're like, I wish I was doing that.
Yeah.
And that's always the thing people get. Yeah, it's easy to sort of look across the water, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I think I think I could do it now if I went traveling of like short stints in places, but I don't think I'd ever go away for like a year or two now. I don't think that would be, I just don't think in my gut that's what I'd want to do. And I've got better the older that I am at really listening to my gut. I really didn't do that when I was younger. I'm much better at following my intuition.
Got you. Then obviously you have a great time at uni, maybe too good a time. And then what's your sort of first job after uni?
Typical, what the heck am I going to do? I'll earn some money. I went into recruitment and obviously. It was 2018. It was the World Cup. It was like the best summer. And I went into a tech recruitment business. I started out in tech recruitment and I actually got shifted to internal recruitment, which I remember at the time thinking that was almost a demotion. I remember thinking, well, am I not good enough to do external recruitment? But thank goodness, because it was my manager Mel that had brought me over to internal, and she just opened up my eyes to a whole different world within recruitment, and a side that I really enjoyed and I think I'm much better at.
Because for those listening who might not appreciate the sort of nuances between the two, what would you say the differences are?
So external recruitment is working with external businesses, third party. You'll go out there and typically in contingency recruitment. So what I was doing at the start, you work on a fee-based model. We'll charge you a fee for hiring a software engineer. But internal recruitment is working within the business. It's a lot more holistic in the sense that you're looking at more things. So you're looking at all the other parts of a role in a business. But actually what I do now, I act as a fractional internal recruiter for different businesses. So I combine the two because I love working with different types of businesses and I love working with e-commerce and marketing agencies. But I also love the side of internal, which is really overlooked in a business. And businesses are really reactive to say, right, we need to hire loads of people, let's hire an internal recruiter. But when you see big tech redundancies, they're the first people to go. And it's quite an underappreciated arm of the world and of the like a world of work. But I absolutely loved it. I flew in internal recruitment, but the recruitment agency in itself was such a tough environment.
Why?
It was pre-COVID. So this thing of taking laptops home and finishing at home or working from home was not a thing. You got in the office first thing in the morning. We had really set breaks. So we had like a 15-minute break, a 45-minute break, a 15-minute break. And outside of that, you just were in sprints, what we would call it. And then if you didn't have the results for the day, so we had loads of mini targets, you didn't leave the office. You were there till 8 o'clock, 8:30.
And was that regular?
Yeah, like if you didn't have your targets when you first started, you had to stay and you had to get that. And I remember coming home sometimes when my mum picked me up from the tram because she was like, you're not walking home at this time. And I was living at home because I just moved back from uni. And I remember her being like, is this what it's meant to be like? Is that how it works? But now, and I never want to speak so badly of that company, but there were certain like I loved my manager and I will always be very highly of Mel, but there were certain practices within that company that really shaped the way that I think today. And when I speak on LinkedIn to an audience, I'm trying to empower people to say like, this isn't what you put up with in the world of work, that there are ways that you're not just being a Gen Z fighting and being overly over the top. You're like fighting for what's right for you, and you should get the best out of a workplace. You have to put in the work. That
For
is,
sure.
both of those things can exist. But if you're taking a half day because of a funeral, or if you're taking annual leave because you're sick, that's not.
It's not.
Don't put up with
That's
it.
not what it's for.
That's not what it's for. That's
exactly.
that's not what it's meant to be for.
And it is the whole ethic towards kind of the modern day workplace has changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
For the good on the whole.
Yeah.
Because I think I look back at some of the work environments I used to be in, I'm like, that would not wash these days. And almost I probably was complicit in it by being so quiet and not standing up for it at times.
Yeah.
But hopefully people, and like yourself, trying to speak up and empower a few people to have the confidence to speak up about those things is half the battle.
But I did it when I first joined Fearless. I had a team, and I look back and I think, gosh, there were so many things that I did because I didn't know any better.
True.
And I wish that I had just taken a bit of time before managing a team. But it was 2022 and things just like spiraled in the recruitment world, and I had quite a few things going on personally that I actually look back and I think, oh my gosh, I should have so much better for the people that I managed in certain aspects. But I can hold my hands up to that.
Yeah, and also it wasn't through malice. That's the difference.
It was never through malice. It was always from being just 24 and naive.
Yeah, and learning.
And exactly.
And so that job, how did that go? Like, did you enjoy it at the whole? Like, how did it come to an end?
So I enjoyed certain parts of it. I enjoyed most parts of it. I think culturally, I didn't enjoy certain parts. I think it was recruitment then, and I don't know if it's the same now. It was quite a boys' club, and I think that you got on. It's really weird because the top biller in the business, she was absolutely amazing. She was called Mel, and she was so good, and I'll speak really highly of her still. And she really set the tone of like what a good recruiter could be. And you could be female, and you could be all the things, and you could all the traits. But I remember being in the office sometimes, and a lot of the chat would be about football and pints and all this stuff that created this like undercurrent of culture that I never fed into. And I was never going to be in work at that point. I think I'd really learned my lesson of not burning the candle at both ends. And I was never going to stay out till 4 or 5 in the morning with people that I worked with. It was just not going to be my thing. And I felt that there were advantages to doing that. And I never did that. And I had a group there that didn't do that. And I actually think there were moments in work where one of the leaders in the business, he would walk past your desk and you like the hairs on your arm would stand up and you would feel so nervous. And I remember if I got a call, I'd had to pick up, if it was 8 o'clock at night, I'd pick up the phone. I'd make sure that like I would always be available and on hand for that. And then I work in the business I'm in now, and I work with some of the most influential people, and none of them ever displayed those traits. So when I got the message, I was like 3 years in, I felt like I'd hit a bit of a ceiling. I was asking for pay rises. Nothing was happening really. And Dom had messaged me on LinkedIn, and I'd known of Dom and Stephen because of Social Chain. I hadn't known a lot, but I'd known enough to know that they were, very good at what they did. And Dom had sent me a message and said, I love your content. I'm looking for an internal recruiter. I'm not like if you're a new venture, we've not got a name. Nothing's been really decided. Do you fancy coming to join? And I remember being like, I just felt it again in my gut. I was like, yeah, I need to have that conversation.
So interesting, you'd started posting at that point already.
Yeah, I started posting in 2018. Oh my gosh, I looked back at some of my content the other day, and it
Don't
was
do it.
Yeah, don't go down that rabbit hole. It was all very quite vanilla. It was all like video-based content, but it was more just me talking to a camera. But I'd started posting, and I remember getting some traction on that at that moment in time. But again, like that leader in the business was very set on what you could and couldn't post. So you couldn't post certain things, or it had to be like sense checked almost. And then at that point, I knew when Dom had messaged me, I remember thinking that was the first time I ever thought, oh my gosh, like I have eyes on me that
people are looking at my content that I didn't realize.
That you never know. You never know what you're putting out there, which actually was quite a scary thing now looking back. But I remember being like, oh my gosh, I've like caught the attention of someone that I know is very good at what he does and is very good at marketing, and I've managed to catch his attention. And I remember Dom said to me the other week, He never ever spoke to anyone else about my role. Like he never advertised it. He just said, I saw you and I knew I wanted you in the business.
I love that. So how did that then? So obviously you've been approached by Don McGregor. Yeah. There's not even a business title at this stage. So how did you, obviously you were excited by an opportunity, whatever that opportunity is. Yeah. How did it then kind of materialize into what it is now?
Yeah. So I had a conversation with Dom and it was very surface level. It was, we're doing this investment fund or a VC. This is the idea. And if I'll be honest, I had no idea what a VC was. And I just had no idea
about it. You've never been involved in that side of it. Then And again, just a quick snippet for people who maybe listen to this who don't know what it is. Just give us a quick snippet.
Yeah. So we basically are an investment fund for e-commerce businesses primarily. So we will go into a business and we'll take a small percentage of that business and we'll give them investment. We don't take fees, so we don't do anything like that. But what we also do at Fearless is we have a team of marketers, recruiters, finance, and we'll essentially be that internal team for our investment without them having to go and spend a ton of money on different kind of agencies or businesses. So when he spoke to me, I remember being like, I have no idea what this world is, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to have the conversations. I went into the Fearless offices and met with Charlie and David, who are the other two founders. And I remember them offering me the job, and I just thought, oh my gosh. And I said this to my dad really weirdly. My dad said this the other day. We were sat in the front room of my parents, and I said, this is either going to be like the worst thing I've ever done and I'm going to regret it, and this is just far too big for me, or it's going to be the best thing I ever did. Because I'd only ever hired graduates into a recruitment agency. I was only ever taking 21-year-olds, trying to get them into recruitment in a recruitment agency. And suddenly, I don't know how I'd managed to handle the interview. I suddenly was recruiting really senior people for investments and in e-commerce businesses. But that, again, is the power of a personal brand, because Dom said he didn't know that when he hired me. He's like, I had no idea that you'd only ever hired recruiters.
And it, to some extent, it is irrelevant, isn't it? Because like you've got the aptitude to do it.
Yeah.
So then that's just the new vehicle in which to do it.
Yeah. And Dom doesn't love the recruitment kind of world. Yeah. That was demonstrated a few years ago when he did a post about recruitment, and the recruitment community descended on him in the most awful way I've ever seen. I just thought, this narrative that recruitment has, people are just feeding into that by just being so awful in the comments. But I remember Dom saying he was really sad when they thought about bringing a recruiter in. He was like, I don't want a certain type of... It needs to be this like certain type of person. And I think we just met, and Dom and I have the most funny relationship because, I mean, we debate every single day. He's texted me 3 times this morning trying to get me engaged in political debate. But we have a really good common ground of what we want. And I think we just had a really nice conversation of how it could work.
I love that. And then how long have you been doing that now then?
Oh my gosh, it's nearly 4 years. Nearly 4 years now. And it's evolved. So it was initially just for the investment portfolio. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it's evolved into working fractionally for some other businesses. I didn't love the idea that a recruitment business is taking... you when you were a founder in a startup, you're not going to pay 25% recruitment fee, 22% recruitment fee. And then if you don't, you're almost like you're bought out of the market because other people will just go and pay that. And I remember Dom and I having a conversation and just thinking, that's obscene. Like those recruitment fees, that's really high for what I think what a startup needs. And they don't need to be paying that. So what we eventually did was start a business where it's about working on behalf of the business, and it's about keeping as much money in that ecosystem business as possible, because they shouldn't be paying 25%, 20%. At the time, I think the average was 22.5% when we started it. That was the recruitment fee.
Yeah, which is absolutely wild, because that money comes from somewhere, right?
Exactly. And then also, I love the recruitment community and what it can do, but sometimes when you see recruiters and like recruitment brands just posting about the fact they're going to Marbella for 5 nights and that sometimes I think that doesn't feed very well into the client side.
It doesn't help the reputation.
No, you want to, like, and there's no problem with like screaming about your incentives and all that kind of stuff, but gosh, I bet the recruitment community comes for me now. But sometimes I just think, oh, like that's a really high.
I describe it's that sort of an example. It's just crude, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're charging high fees for something and then you are doing something so public, it's kind of a bit it's a crude
It's
way of
quite
displaying
exactly,
that.
and it's never something that I enjoyed, like that side of that of those things. And even payday, and when I was in the agency, it would constantly be a conversation of what you were doing with your money on payday. And I'm like not a materialistic person at all. Like I'm not bothered about any of that stuff. And it was a thing where I think I became materialistic through being around a materialistic world. And I didn't enjoy that.
So what would you say your sort of top achievement has been during your time at Fearless? What's the thing you're most proud to look back on?
I genuinely think it's, I genuinely think it's working with startups and like finding their first few hires and speaking to a founder, and you can hear the relief in them when you find this absolute gem and they just get the pressure relieved. And I'm saying that now from a founder standpoint of being a founder of an e-commerce business. If there was someone that we hired at some point that would take the pressure off, that I like sit and think about all the time of where the challenges are, I would be so grateful. And I think that I always found it was that side of things. I could sit here and say like, I placed this person to this business and it was the fastest growing agency in the UK. And whilst that's amazing, it's that solo founder or the co-founders, and you find that first person and you can feel the relief coming off them because you found someone that is just perfect for them.
It really interestingly, so you've obviously had that role, you're working amongst a load of e-commerce businesses.
Yeah.
You've then started your own e-commerce business. What has that always been like something you've wanted to do, or has it been just being inspired by who you're around?
Yeah. Never. I never wanted to own an e-commerce. I honestly didn't really know what e-commerce was about until I joined Fearless. I didn't really get like D2C, all that kind of stuff. It was the weirdest moment that we came up with Pieceful. So my partner and I had gone away to the Lake District, and I think we were about 5 months into dating each other at this point. And I remember us being like, we'll take something away with us. Let's just take something to do with us. Well, I thought we were going to get Scrabble. So we went to Waterstones. We were looking at all the things. And then I remember Joe was like, why don't we get a jigsaw? I was like, that's so boring. Come on, Joe. Like, we're 26 years old. We're not doing a jigsaw. And then we just happened to buy it. And it was Van Gogh's like Starry Night, which is crazy hard. And we basically took it to the Lake District and we got lost in it. We did it for about 5-6 hours a night. And it was winter and it was just the perfect scenario. But I have he owns his own marketing agency. I'm in recruitment. We both spend a lot of time on our phones. And I remember it was actually the weekend of Black Friday. So Joe was constantly going to be on his phone because he owns an e-commerce PPC agency. And he just was off his phone. Like he did what he needed to do. And then he just completely came off it. And we both completely lost ourselves in this puzzle. And then we were like, oh my gosh, we should do more puzzles. This is a really good idea. And then we wanted to find ones that were really cool, had amazing art, just was something that we liked doing, but they were all really old fashioned.
Like watercolor.
Watercolor, the like coastal, like all very what your nan would do basically. And I remember Joe said it, and he said it was the night before we were going. He was like, "Why don't we just create a jigsaw business?" I said, "That is not like no. There's no way we can do that. There's just no way we can do that." He was like, "Why not? We can absolutely do that." So he. You know, when you look at the like execution and like innovator, he is by far the innovator. He constantly thinks of ideas. I think and will admit this, he sometimes struggles to follow them all through. Whereas I'm not that creative, but I can follow things through really well. And so then when we came back, we started looking into artists and like collections and manufacturers. And so then, we have now created Pieceful. But Pieceful's not just a jigsaw business. It's about digital health and people getting off their phones and doing something where you're getting out of your head, but you're creating something is really beautiful and you can hang up and it's really nice to look at.
Yeah, so it's got more of a purpose to it as well.
Yeah.
How did you go? Obviously, you've had that amazing idea between you and go, right, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
How did you get your first puzzle?
Yeah. I remember us being in the lakes the next day and we went for a walk, and I really remember being by Windermere and this like anxiety almost set in where I was like, this is going to be hard. Like, this is going to be quite difficult. Actually, it's harder than I ever thought it was going to be. But I remember saying, like, I don't even know where to start. Where do we start? And I'm so glad we're doing it together, because I think now I would never have followed through with it on my own. But I remember Joe being like, just take it step by step. We just got to find a manufacturer. We just need to come up with a brand name. We just need to do all of that kind of stuff. Just take it step by step, and all of it will just build itself up. And now we say it to each other. It's so cringy. But when we go for walks, we say, let's just do the 1%. So every day we say, what can we do that is going to get the business further forward than it needs to be? It doesn't need to be anything crazy. Some days when it's 10 o'clock at night, it's just doing a social media post that will do well, or that you're just putting it out there. But every day we say, what's our 1%? Like, what are we going to do that is going to get it to the point where it needs to be?
Forward.
Yeah.
And how long's that been going now? A year?
A year. So, and then we're just about to launch our second collection. So we've worked with about 4 female artists. I was really set on working with female artists because I didn't know this, but female artists, I think it's something around 50% of the pay of male artists. If you think about what male artists are already paid, and artists in general. So I really wanted to have female artists as the focal point. At some point, I would love to incorporate male into it as well. But for our really first official collection, where we're going to put a massive launch behind it, because our first one was more of like a just testing the water a little bit.
Yeah.
We said we want to use like female artists, and so then we're just about to launch our second collection in time for Q4.
Exciting, yeah. So you're going to be crazy busy. How do you juggle a full-time job and starting your own business? Because I think that is something that a lot of people dream about. Like, I'd love to start a business, but how do you actually manage your time?
I don't think I ever think about it. I don't think I ever sit and think, I'm actually a really good planner, but I always say, this is what I'm going to do with my week. But it never works out like that. I always try and do my exercise in the morning, like getting out first thing in the morning. And it's something where I finish work, I don't want to then go to the gym. I want to like use the evenings in the best way possible. So I always get to the gym in the morning, and then it's going to work for the full day. And thinking about recruitment, sometimes people can't have conversations till 6:30 at night. And then it's honestly sitting on the sofa with a laptop or packing boxes. It's spending weekends packing boxes. It's saying no to social plans. It's saying no to holidays. It's putting off buying a house. It's all the stuff that I really thought at 28 I would have down. I would have a house. We would be really settled in that aspect and all those kind of things. And you just have to put it off.
And what's your driver? What makes you want to? Because I think some people listening to this thinking, why? Why don't you just stop doing it and just get your house? What's your driver behind it?
So I saw something the other day, and I thought, this is exactly what I love about Pieceful. I want to create something that's bigger than me. And I also want to create something. I see brands and businesses, and I think that business must be doing amazing, but I just would never want to sell that product. And not in a bad way. That is so what people look at Pieceful and think, what the heck are you doing selling jigsaws? But I really wanted a product where people picked it up and it's only going to do good for them. It's only going to get them off their phones, get them out their head, do something creative, and they have something to show at the end of it if they would like it. And if they don't, they can just break it all up and put it in a box. I never wanted to sell something because other people had done it and there was a market to do that. And I look at other people that probably started at a similar time to us in a completely different space, and their business has just gone straight up, and they have just they'll be doing 6-7 figures already. And I constantly had to remind myself that's not what I wanted. I didn't want that product. I didn't want that space. And I also, like I said, I wanted to create something that was bigger than me. Sometimes when you're in work and sometimes in day-to-day life, people do things for themselves, and it's a great thing to do, and you can go through life and you can just do everything and it's for you. But I wanted to turn around in 10 years' time, even something like of showing our kids, look at what we did at 26 and 27 years old with no financial support, full-time jobs. Joe has his own business. I have Basecamp Talent. We look at what we did, and we'll probably kill ourselves getting there. But I'd rather have that at the end of it.
And like you say, there's nothing other than the risk that you two are facing, going into the venture. There's no bad that can come of it.
No.
Even if Pieceful reaches however many thousand people and it impacts their lives in a positive way. Yeah. That's a great thing. Right?
Exactly. And do you know what? It's the best thing for our relationship, because Joe was the most calm person you'll ever met. I'm quite fiery. and we had the best relationship anyway. But I remember saying to Joe when we first started this, the second we have an argument that I think it's too much about this business, we stop. And we shook hands like midnight, 2 months after we had thought of the idea, and we were just getting the manufacturer sorted. And we said, if this ever gets to that point, we both call it quits and we stop, because our relationship is the most important part. And when you have that in the back of your mind, and when you're working with a partner in a professional capacity, you have to think so much more about what you're saying and how you're delivering things. When I can be quite fiery and I can be quite off the bat, I don't really think about sometimes what I'm saying and how it lands. And it's calmed me down in the weirdest way possible. You think I'd be more stressed, but I think I'm so aware of how we speak to each other and the impact it has on our relationship. And it's in our home, like in the evenings, it's literally in our place of comfort and sanctuary. So, and I know for some people who are like co-founders, they like, I just want to kill my partner when we're doing this business together. And there's been times where we've been frustrated, but we're so careful about how we navigate this.
Yeah, relationship first.
Yeah, always relationship first. And that's stressful because, like we were saying before we started, I don't have any financial support in this. I don't have like a bank that I can go to, and even not even that, I can't go and live at home for 2 years and build it. That's just not an option. So the stress it's a lot. Like, you look at stuff and you look at the fact you would really like a holiday and we would like to do that, but then we look at the fact that, well, you know, what's the bigger picture right now? You constantly have to ask yourself that when it's the hardest thing to do.
It's the short-term sacrifice. Do you love it though?
I love it. I love what it's taught me about myself and this world, because I don't know about kind of where you grew up, but I never thought that owning a business was a thing that I could ever do. It was not a thing. And like, my mum's a teacher, my dad worked in cybersecurity, and they're very risk averse people. And it was not a thing that I would ever have my own business. And so when you turn around and you're looking at like a P&L and all this stuff, and you're like making big decisions, it's really empowering. You're like, oh my gosh, like I can do this.
It opens your eyes, doesn't it? Because similarly, I grew up and I didn't really have any exposure to business. Then all of a sudden I sort of got into it and started doing more and more of it. And I was like, this is a totally different world I did not know existed.
Yeah.
And then that had me hooked from the off, I think.
Yeah. I think that Joe chases those kind of wins where like he will feed off that. That will really, he's very metric focused. I'm probably a bit more community focused where, you know, it's good to have two. Because if I was so community focused, then I think I would see revenue and profit and blah, blah. Yeah. Just part of what, it's fine. Whereas when we got, it's in the past, since we've launched, maybe since 6 months after we launched, I've got 2 separate messages, and they both said, I'm sending this to someone that's recently lost a partner and is grieving, and could you just write a note basically in? And I remember turning to Joe, I'm like such an empath, and I said that's the best thing I've ever heard. If we don't hit our revenue targets for the year, I don't really care. Like that. You've had an impact. You've had an impact that someone who is grieving can pick up our puzzle and get lost in that space. That's, for me, is the biggest win I could ever have. Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think an area that some people might be quite interested in, because we all see Dragon's Den and people are doing product. It's really interesting. How do you get the first sample product made? How do you get it? Yeah. Well, it turns out there's not a lot of puzzle manufacturers in the UK. I'm sure, yeah. So we'd done our research into kind of what we wanted, and we knew exactly our branding. If there's anything that I'm really, really chuffed with, it's our branding. Yeah, like the brand name Pieceful, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I love it. It's really good. I really liked that. And we wanted a design that really kind of emulated our message. And it's weird because, if anything, we knew exactly how we wanted the box to look. We knew exactly what we wanted the jigsaws to look like. It was just then following through with that. We basically just sent loads of messages to different manufacturers. I love the research side of things. So I was the one that was getting on calls. Like anything to do with artists and manufacturers, I'm the one that would love that side of things. And I constantly want to be speaking to them. And we honestly just had like a half an hour conversation with someone, and And then we just basically said, we just would love to see a sample. And they said, we don't sell samples. So you're just going to have to order the first batch. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, it was £250. It wasn't a lot of money. But I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money to put down on something that we don't know
Something
what
that
it's
could be
going to like.
rubbish, couldn't it?
Exactly.
Could be some guy just cutting it out with a spoon for all you know.
Exactly. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what this is going to turn out like. And it was amazing. We actually are in the process of looking at new manufacturers because making it in the UK is incredibly expensive.
Yeah, sure.
But we got the design and the puzzle and everything was perfect.
There's something about that moment from it's all well and good. It's an idea. Then you've got an idea on paper.
Yeah.
Then you've got a physical product that you have made in your hands. It's like pretty mind blowing.
And I remember we actually got the delivery to Joe's parents' house because we were in Glastonbury, and I remember in Glastonbury we just signed our tenancy for the first flat we were ever going to live in together, and then Joe's brother had sent us the box and Joe was like, rip it open, just look at the box, just send us all the pictures you can. And bless him, he sent like a photo shoot basically of the puzzle. And I remember being stood, like I think we were at Shania Twain or something, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is the weirdest moment. This is not where I thought my life was going to be a couple of years ago. And I remember just thinking, I can't wait to hold that. And I think we have it now on display in our home of the 3 boxes. And I just look at it sometimes and I'm like, that's the weirdest thing that we've created that.
Yeah, it's a mad feeling. What's the hope for the business? What would you like to see it do?
I would love to see it do like more community work with it. So I would love to see it. So I have a real passion for basically like justice and like doing good for people. So one thing I would love to do is make a line, a jigsaw line for dementia people with dementia. So my granddad, he's passed now, but he had dementia, and it's really weird when you see someone with dementia because you lose them so many times. And then when we started looking to jigsaws, off the back of it, we saw that it's amazing for people with dementia because there's certain colours and there's certain textures, and really focusing on something can help. And I've said to Joe, like, I really want to do a line that's focused purely on people who have dementia. And I'd also really love to do the community work of leaning into the digital detox and digital health. So events where people sit and they don't have their phones and they can sit and do puzzles or read. I don't care, but I would love to incorporate that lifestyle piece into it.
Yeah, there's almost like a real in life meet-up version alongside it, isn't there? That could work really
like
well.
A peaceful cafe. I know there's ones I probably should turn around and say, oh, we want to do 7 figures in 2 years, but
it doesn't always have to be. Yeah, it doesn't always have to be about that.
No.
I mean, Joe might say the other.
Yeah. He would be like, Emily.
But no, I totally get it. Like it's purpose driven.
Yeah.
Which will give you more satisfaction than an arbitrary number.
Exactly. Did you focus a lot on revenue when you first started?
Probably not. And so I had a cybersecurity business, and we were effectively teaching people to not click on phishing emails and passwords. And I think because I'd come from a public sector background of service, I probably felt like I was carrying on my public duty by educating the masses about how to stop sending money to people that they shouldn't do and stuff like that. So I kind of probably a telltale thing for me throughout most of my adventures has been overdoing things at the cost of profit.
Really?
So, not in a particularly deliberate way as such, but I think I obsess about product and service to the point that it will hammer profit.
Yeah.
Whereas other people, if they were more profit minded, they'll be like, well, but why go the extra 10%?
Yeah.
Because the extra 10% is what makes it good.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes it amazing.
Yeah.
If we don't have the extra 10%, we're just the same as everybody else. So it's that sort of battle, I guess.
So I think that's actually what we're in a bit of an impasse in at the minute, because we've just got the new sample from a potential manufacturer we're looking at, and there were certain things I was just like, I don't like that. And I remember Joe being like, if we sell this product, it can do well, but what would you like to change about it? And I basically was like, if that doesn't change, I'm not selling the product. And we both agreed on it at the end. But I said, I want someone, I'd never want to sell a product.
Yeah, it's got to knock them out, blow them away.
Exactly. And I want to be proud of it. And my other thing is, like, we charge £25 for a jigsaw, let's just say, about £22 mark. But that's someone's hard-earned money. And this economy is not easy for people. I want someone who spent that money to pick it up and have this experience. So we have a Spotify playlist that goes in with it, and we have it curated specifically for that art. And I want people to pick it up and be like, that's amazing.
Yeah, amazing value and get loads from it, 100%.
Yeah. And do you know what's weird? If I think I probably could put the two jigsaws side by side and no one else would notice the difference, but I would really care about that specific thing. I remember I showed it to my dad the other day and he's like, I wouldn't even notice that, Emily. Like that tiny thing that you're getting hung up on, I wouldn't
I bet
even
the
notice.
audience that buys it would.
Yeah.
And it'll make them buy again as well.
Yeah. But I really want someone to say, that's an amazing product. And you don't have to come back. I would love it if you did. But I don't want to send something to someone that is half the effort. I would never want to do that. And I think that's the thing about product businesses that I love in comparison to service-based. I think service-based, sometimes people are actually okay with not always doing the best job that they can because they know it's going to generate revenue. But product, I love how caught up people get on like the product development side of things because it's right, especially in the consumer space.
Yeah, and it gives you an opportunity to be the best in class, and then you become the aspiration, not the norm almost.
Exactly.
Well.
I want people to be like, oh my gosh, I want people to mimic us. I would love that. I know I remember when Joe first said it, he said, people at some point, if we do really well, will copy. And I remember going into panic. I was like, oh my gosh, so we need to do this and this, and we can't ever have that happen. And actually, I look at that now and I think that would be amazing. Imagine if some people copied us, because clearly we're doing something right. So yeah, bring it on if they want to copy.
That was Emily Moffat, founder of Basecamp Talent and head of talent at Fearless Adventures, and founder of Pieceful. Thanks so much for listening to the show this week, and please do make sure to click the follow button on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to check out Ministry of Work, where you can also sign up for a free trial day. This episode was produced, recorded and edited right here at Ministry of Work, with a special thanks to our studio manager Dan Brown and, of course, to you for listening. I'm Eddie Whittingham, and this has been Greater Manchester's Greatest Minds.